This video is brought to you by
Auckland Photographer's Clothing.
In this lesson we talk about autofocus, when to use what focus mode and how to actually set the right focus in your image, and also what mistakes you can do when you use the autofocus. Let's start with a simple experiment. I now here have my frame set in a way that I have a foreground, this here, a middle ground there, and a background there, only on the subject. So I have different layers, like when you have several people maybe you want to photograph and one person should be in focus and the other person should maybe not be in focus, or different animals, or there's maybe a bush, an animal and another bush in the background. And also there's something very far in the distance here, but that will be always out of focus. And I now have the camera on. I am in manual mode, but it doesn't really matter in what mode you are. And I just set the exposure that it looks good. I open the aperture a lot, make it suitable to your situation. So when you can, use the max open aperture. I, in my case, can now not use it because it's too bright, pure daylight, so it would not work to use the maximum open aperture. But I take, for example, now f2.8, which is also quite open. And why that? Because I want a lot of blurriness, or in other words, a small depth of field, that I can demonstrate the focus very good here for you. When you set back your camera to default settings, or when you buy a new camera, usually the AFA mode is on. And that means autofocus automatic. And that means it chooses automatically between AFS and AFC. And I explain only the two modes because, as mentioned, the A mode means it switches automatically between the both. So I go first now into AFS. And AFS means AF single. And what that means, I press halfway through to focus, and then it focuses. That's it. And when I keep it pressed halfway through, then it always keeps the focus on that exact same spot. And I can even move my camera around. Right now I'm on the tripod, but I could move my camera around and it would always stay on that same distance. It would not track it, it would stay on the distance. Let's say I focus now here, autofocus, and this is maybe now 30 centimeters here away, then it will always stay on that 30 centimeters. And when I go 1 meter away, it will be out of focus because it stays on 30 centimeters. That is AFS. And the other mode we have is AFC. And AFC means continuous, C for continuous. And that means the focus is tracking. Actually, the camera is tracking the motive. And the more modern your camera is, the better the tracking works. We now, for example, here film with AFC, face detection, tracking, so it always keeps the focus on my face, or at least should keep the focus. Sometimes it does not work, but in most of the cases with modern cameras, that works pretty well and is pretty amazing compared to older cameras. But what it means now here in this scenario is that when I press halfway through, you don't hear that beep. So sometimes when you don't hear that beep and think, oh, I do something wrong, then you maybe have AFC on, because then it does not do did it, like with AFS. Because the focus is constantly tracking. And like I said before, when I would focus now, press halfway through and keep it halfway pressed through, and I move, it will stay on that focus point that I have and keeps tracking. So let's say this is 30 centimeters away, and when I move away, it will track that. It will track my motion, or it will track the motion of the subject when the subject is moving, like a person, an animal, or whatever you photograph that is moving. So in simple terms, you can say AFC is for moving objects, and AFS is for standing objects. You can remember that then very easy. So S for standing, C for moving. Not that simple, but you can just remember. C continuous, S single shot. And yeah, those are the main two autofocus modes you use. And I personally use AFS most of the times when I do portrait shots, when I do a shot like this now, whenever I use autofocus of something that is not moving that much. Or in a studio situation, for example, I would use AFS as well. And for everything that is moving, like kids or sports or animals, then I use AFC mode, that it is tracking the motion. AFA, as mentioned, is a mix between the both, so the camera chooses automatically if it takes AFS or AFC. And as you can imagine, a lot of times the camera is wrong, because how should the camera know what I want to photograph? For example, if I would have a little bug here walking and the bug is just slightly walking, but I want it to be tracked, and the camera will say, I don't see that bug, I see only there the leaves. So I choose AFS. And in other situations, I maybe want it not to track, and the camera says, no, now something is moving and I want it to be tracked. So I would always recommend you to choose between S and C and throw that A mode out of the camera and not use it. And then there are two other modes in the camera. One is DMF here with this camera model, and one is MF. MF stands for manual focus, and DMF is a mix between autofocus and manual focus. I don't use DMF at all. You can throw that out as well. The only important thing is MF. And for MF, manual focus, I have a whole other lesson that is following this lesson here. But for now, let's keep on focusing on the different autofocus modes. So we not only can choose between AFS and AFC, but we can also choose between different focus areas. And this is quite important if you use the autofocus. And there are a lot of settings in the camera. A lot of settings are unnecessary in my opinion, but some are pretty useful. And I will just go through the different settings and tell in short what it's for and if it's useful or not. So the first thing is wide. And wide means you have a wide area of focus points, and it will choose in that wide area whatever the camera thinks is important and you want to focus. And we can try it with this thing that I'm photographing here, if it's working or if it's not working. So I have now wide on and it focuses on the front here. So now the foreground is in focus, even though maybe the background is more interesting. But how should the camera know? It's just on wide.
You want to take photos in pouring rain or bitter cold? Easy for me, because of the best jacket system for outdoor photographers. My name is Benjamin Jaworskyj, professional photographer for over 12 years. And this is my signature edition of the Hawkland 7-in-1 Parker Pro jacket set for photographers. When I'm outdoors, I want to focus on what's truly important. I want to feel comfortable, warm, dry, and always be ready to take the photo I have in mind, no matter how bad the weather. One set, 3 jacket layers you can wear in 7 ways, made for professional use. Check it out for your adventures. Now on sale. Discontinued and off-season items up to 60% off at www.hawkland.us.
Hawkland. Photographer's clothing.
The next one is zone. And zone is not wide anymore, but a little bit more focused, a little bit more compressed. And you can move that zone around. So I can say now, don't use the foreground zone, for example, because that leaf here in the foreground is in the bottom area of my image. So you can say in the lower third, and maybe I want more of the upper third to be in focus, so I can move that area more to the top if I want it to be in focus, and bam. What I want, now the background of that plant here is in focus. Or I can move it more to the foreground, and the foreground is in focus. So you can see that mode is a lot more accurate than just the wide mode. The next one is center, and center is a little bit like spot metering, you could say. I don't know who uses it. It always means everything in center of my image should be in focus. But that also means that always your subject is in center. and everything that you photograph is in center. And that can be interesting if you shoot like a whole series where everything is centered and then put it next to each other. Otherwise, it's just boring to have everything in center. So when I focus now, it focus just right into the center, but maybe there is nothing in my image now here right in the center. So yeah, you can use that, but personally, I would throw it out. Next thing is quite interesting. It's the flexible spot. And the flexible spot you can choose between with this camera model L, M and S. And depending what you choose in size, it is more small or bigger. And you can move that thing around. And with modern mirrorless cameras, you can move it around in the whole image. With older DSLR cameras, you can only move it around in a certain area. Then you have some focus points in the middle, and there you can usually move it around. Now in the mirrorless camera, I can move it everywhere. So I can move it all to the right, focus. I can move it all to the bottom here and focus, or I can move it all to the back here and focus. And this is very, very accurate. But as you see, you have to work a little bit. So you have to really move it around. With a lot of cameras, you can use it with touch, or with pro cameras, you have a little joystick, you can move that thing around. When you photograph more professional, you usually don't take your camera off your eye that often, like I do here now in the course to explain it better. But usually I have the camera always on my eye. And then it's very helpful to just have your little thumb, chick, 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 move that point around wherever you need it. Then sometimes bring it more on the right side, on the left side, and so on. And yeah, this is actually what it's for. Then you have another mode that this camera has, and it's called Expand Flexible Spot. And it's actually there for AFC. So you have a spot and you have an area around it. And whenever AFC, so the tracking, is on, it will move a little bit to the front and to the back in this area and around it. So it's quite helpful for sports or for wildlife, or also sometimes for people photography, when you have an eye and want the eye to be in focus, and then the tracking goes a little bit around it. So it's not only one spot, but a little bit around it. So you can say it kind of scans the area. So not only the point, but also the area a little bit around it, depending on where you put it. And then with this camera, there's a special feature. It's called Tracking Expand Flexible Spot. And this is only for continuous focus. And that means when you have a subject, let's say on the left side, and you focus on it and you want to track it, and it moves from left to right through your image, then it keeps the focus tracking on the movement. And with more modern cameras than this, it's not that useful anymore, because with face detection, it's tracking anyway. So when you have face detection on, then even if the person or even animal or insect they have now, or train or plane or car they have in the most modern cameras now, then it's tracking that as well. So I don't think that this option is in a lot of cameras. So you know what it does now in theory, but I don't know if you have it in your camera. Honestly, sometimes it's just too much options you have in your camera. I would say the most important is the field you can move around, because then you can say it's more in the top part of the image, more in the bottom part of the image, left or right. And then you have your flexible spot you move around, and the rest of options you don't actually need. It's good to have, but most people don't need it. It's like maybe 1% of person will ever use that mode because they find it useful, and the rest says, oh, I'm fine with that normal flexible spot and maybe the area around it when I need some tracking. And most cameras today also have face detection. More modern cameras have eye detection, and honestly, for most of the times, that's totally fine to just use that, because then it switches automatically between a spot where you have set it and then the face. And when the face is moving a little bit to the left, then it auto detects the face moving to the left and just keeps the focus on the left side. So the more and more advanced cameras get and modern cameras get, the more and more those features here are not really necessary anymore. So you might ask yourself, what mode do I use most of the times? And it's totally depending. For landscapes, I usually use manual focus. For portrait shots, I usually use nowadays eye detection or face detection. And if I don't have that option available, I usually use that flexible spot, move it around wherever I need it. If I'm in portrait mode, more to the top. If I'm in landscape mode, depending where the subject is, maybe to the left, maybe to the right. Use with that also some composition rules I will teach you later, and this is the way I would use it. What is always important, and what always my driving instructor when I made my driving license said to me, you drive the car and not the car drives you. And it's the same with the autofocus. You control the camera and you should not let the camera control you. So don't set it only on wide and maybe AFC all the time, and then you're wondering, why is always the background in focus and never the person? Why can I not focus right? The focus of this camera is so bad. No, the focus of the camera is not bad. It's maybe you not using the camera or the autofocus correct. But I think with this lesson now, a lot of things should be clear. Your exercise for today is to try out that different focus modes on different things you photograph. Maybe you have a dog, maybe you have a child, a wife, a husband, whatever you can photograph. Try it out, or just look for a beautiful plant, beautiful flower. You can test the autofocus features. Use AFC, AFS, and then the different modes. Try to find out which button to press, where to bring them around. Also look if you have touch and can move that point around then, and focus on different parts of an image. Some a little bit in the foreground, a little bit in the background, and then you will be really a master in autofocus. This video from my beginner's course Simply Learn Photography from 2023 is part of my photography legacy. Over a period of 5 years, I will publish my courses from learnfromben.com for free and with ads here on YouTube. So everyone can benefit from my knowledge regardless of budget. So subscribe now to the channel and spread the word. And do you want all 9 courses from the last 10 years immediately bundled together and without advertisement at a super affordable price? Then go now to learnfromben.com and get the XXL Bundle as an instant download or stream via the website at www.learnfromben.com. More than 22 hours of the finest learning content on photography, filming and image editing in all levels of skill. Link is in the description and in the comments below. And also check out the sales section with my signature tripods and D-filters and books. Everything is on sale up to 60% off, as long as stocks last. Thank you for your support. Videos from the courses are published every Friday at 5:30 p.m. German time. My name is Jaworskyj and I wish you all some really good photos.